This video may be offensive. This video may contain some things that is going to offend a community, and we are not sugarcoating today. In fact, I'm actually very brave. I'm so brave. The fact that me of all people who waters down a lot, or have done that in the past quite a bit for the sake of just my career, my branding and my outlook and all of that. As you can see, Chanel is in a very different phase of her life now, where I'm just going to be as real as I am in real life, but more online. Because what is there to hold back after all? This is my story. And in part one, I gave you a little bit of a glimpse of that. So in part two, the community I'm about to offend is pertaining to the religious folk, okay? The church folk, okay? Christians, okay? Let's have an honest conversation today, okay? And then of course, the specific ministry that I attended called Christ Embassy. Okay, we're going to talk about that today because this is part two of surviving marriage to a Nigerian pastor. I met him at Christ Embassy in Wembley. It's no longer, but they have some other neighboring branches. But I specifically met him in that branch in 2013. Okay, and from my previous video, I told you how I got to there. I was in a specific church that was a very controlling environment, incredibly difficult. Let's call it a cult, okay? It was overbearing. And in the ending parts of me leaving that ministry, I just remember becoming a bit empowered and a bit more confident enough to beat the fear and leave. But did I really beat all of the fear? Because I do feel that I brought a lot of that fear into the new church, and that is how I was, I guess, trapped again. I say trapped, but if I'm being honest, this new church wasn't as forced or as suffocating. You could be quite free, to be honest with you. In fact, let's say it was encouraged to engage with people outside of the church itself, because of course the goal is to win souls and bring people into the ministry, so they didn't have a problem with that. Whereas the first church was all like, it's only us and nothing else, everything outside is evil. Another video for another day. That particular church, woo, it was a lot. Okay, my pastor, okay, I absolutely really appreciate him to this day. He was like a father figure to me, and he was like a mentor. And I'm specifically talking about the pastor of that branch, okay? So I first met his wife. I joined the ministry. I soon met with the husband. He had a consultation with me and he was mentoring me. And he just kept on saying to me, I'm such a bright star. I'm such a light. I'm so flattered as well, just to, have that as well, following my background and all of the lack of confidence that I had and having to kind of build myself again. The one thing that pastor said to me is, Sister Chanel, are you really, really sure you want to marry this crazy guy? Now, this was just before the wedding announcement, which I shared in part one. I should have shared this then, but I think this is a great segue into this particular story, okay? So he asked me that big question, and I, of course, said, yes, of course, I'm willing to take the risk and the sacrifice and do it for the love of the church. I am being very theatrical because I am quite a theatrical person, but I'm telling the truth, okay? So one of the things I want to say is the sect that I was in before, that church, really installed a lot of fear in me as a Christian, okay? That anything outside of it is doom and gloom. And this is the fear mongering that is put upon the people, okay? by various forms of, oh, this is what the scripture says about that and this and that and that. So it kind of all gets in your head and you become somewhat fearful. It no longer becomes a relaxing relationship, a spiritual growth type of relationship with your God. It now becomes do this or else, go here or else, and I left that ministry terrified of the world outside of me, but I was going for it anyway because I knew being there was killing me. And so where it comes to accountability, I am 100% putting my hand up. Nobody forced me to get into this relationship or marry this man. Nobody pressured me either. I made my choice and I had to live with my choice. I made my choice and I had to deal with it. The choice came from fear because all I could think of, if I marry or with somebody who's not quite Christian enough, or if I marry or stay on my own, something's going to get me. It's all going to go wrong. My life is going to go downhill again and I've built it this far. So let me latch on to, or at least go to the person who is showing me that Christian love. Yeah, that Christian love. The title of this might be No Hate Like Christian Love. And that is going to stir up some things. And I want it to, because this is the type of conversation we need to be having. We love to love, don't we? Congregation. We love to love ourselves. And so this is somebody who loved me, right? Let's take it as it is. I made my choice. Year 1 of marriage was interesting. In fact, whereas it should have been the honeymoon phase or the honeymoon stage, I immediately fell into a catastrophe. Again, my last video, I said, what do you think it was that made me go down the aisle so quickly? I've already seen a lot of people have guessed correctly. We're not talking about that in this video, okay? It will be another separate special out of this series. But specifically, I ended up in that catastrophe and I then, I guess, got into the marriage. And what that was me essentially becoming the leader of the home. Because what I was met by was a complacent person, which I guess I did have the red flags initially, but not enough until it was actually in action. I'm now seeing that I am the initiator of everything. Nothing is getting done until I say, can this be done? I have to use the initiative. I'm planning. I'm thinking ahead. And I'm trying to engage and give you the room to also bring your input so it's not just me. And I swear, nothing. Just a nonchalant, I don't give a shit type of attitude. And so what does a woman do? A woman who has been in a situation where she's fighting for her life because she's living in survival mode. And where I'm now in marriage, where I'm now meant to enjoy the fruits and life of marriage, I have to continue in survival mode. And so in survival mode, you have to do everything to benefit you so that you stay alive. Imagine that was the course of, at least let's talk about the first year. And so I'm doing everything to input, decision-making, leading, planning, the next step, the next phase, finances. I don't even know what is classed as financial abuse because, again, these are things that I should take ownership for and accountability for, right? After all, no one told me to book the Paris trip for us to go and have a couple's time away. That was my decision, but it was me who financed it all. And it was never a, oh, babe, let me include this, or should have even got to that. It should have been, babe, I'm doing it. This is what we're doing. I'm taking you to Paris. That is the difference that I'm realizing that I've obviously fell short on. New York, and this wasn't, I think this is year 2 of marriage. I funded the entire New York trip. I was a driver. He didn't drive. Every time he'll learn to drive, he'll fail. So he never got his license. I drove him everywhere. I drove us everywhere. My dad's car, then I got it was first a Hyundai, then my dad's car, then I got a convertible, then I got a Range Rover. 5 cars, then there was another Range Rover after that. Five cars. I drove all of them. I drove us around. I drove to outside London. I drove us on holidays. I drove us to the seaside. I drove us to everything. Absolutely everything. I never got a treat. I never got a date. I never got a rose. I never got a bouquet of flowers. I never got baby, take £10. Add it to your money to go and do your nails. Oh, or even let me fill up the tank for you to have for the week. Never. I was always paying for everything for us. So there's 2 things here. Apart from the fact that I want to survive and have a life where I don't feel that I'm left out. So I want to do stuff because it's boring. He's benefiting from that because I want to include him as well. So it got to the point where actually I started to exclude him because I want these experiences, but I'm funding it all. So you guys tell me in the comment section, is that financial abuse? Was it deliberate, or was I just trying to do something to make me feel happy? And I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that, because I still kind of go back and forth with that. Was that financial abuse? Like, was that someone just taking a mick out the fact that I am funding everything and there's no initiative on their end? The first year of our marriage was a traumatic situation happened, and this isn't news. I lost a twin pregnancy, and it was 6 months. I had a boy and a girl. My baby daughter, I went to labor with her. Neglect of Black women in pregnancy, neglect of Black women giving birth. I almost lost my life, and this was 6 months along. So I was showing the babies, I can feel them kicking in me, and I had something called the incompetent cervix, which is where your cervix opens at a certain gestation in the pregnancy. That is how I ended up having a manual preterm, and I lost those twins. It was the most devastating thing I had ever been in and been through. Obviously Emmanuel's was very devastating as well, but he lived and survived. This was devastating because my baby daughter not only died in my hands, took her first and last breath in my hands. My son died a day later in the same hospital that they were treating my elder son, in the exact same spot that my son was for the duration of the time he was in hospital. So it was like a flashback almost of exactly what happened with Emmanuel. 23 weeks plus 1 day happened again, okay, during this twin pregnancy. It was the most devastating thing. Why has this happened in the exact manner as before, but this time twins? And healing from that was traumatic, as you can imagine. I was having nightmares. I was having all types of weird dreams and spiritual stuff. You know, you're heightened because your emotions are all over the place. And so I obviously spoke to my ex about it at the time, and he was like, we have to go to a serious church. Y'all, let me tell you where we found ourselves in a ministry called Mountain of Fire. How many of you guys know that church? Well, child, that church is just a lot, okay? It's a lot, and it's scary. It was giving Nollywood times 10. It was giving Nollywood times a million. Wow. So we went to this church, and this was for me very emotional and just broken from the twin loss. And because I had been sharing that I had nightmares, when they were doing their I don't even know how to explain it, anointing, I don't even know how to describe it, and then the pastor or the leader or whoever came to pray on me, and it was all like surrounding me. Imagine all these big people around me. I've just lost a baby and I'm in hysterics, and I was being branded as a witch. I was being branded as, you know, I had perhaps was possessed or had some type of witch energy. For whatever reason, I guess maybe I was the cause of my pregnancy loss. God knows. And you know, this is a very big problem in the African community, especially where religion and Christianity is involved. We start to brand people as witches and demons and stuff. And, you know, it's not like it's impossible for that to exist. I truly do believe there are some evil people amongst us that just has this spirit of wickedness. But this was so traumatizing because it wasn't even a week since I had lost the babies. And I was just in hysterics, and then found myself in the midst of all these people. And I tried to run out the church, and they were trying to stop me. They were holding me back, including my ex. They was like, yes, we got her, something is wrong with her. And it was pulling me out like I was demon possessed. I was like, nah, bro, it's like, this is a lot. I don't want to be here right now because I'm uncomfortable. I managed to get out of the church anyway, and he came after me, and I was charging down the road. I'll never forget it. It was Edgware Broadway or something like that. Edgware Burn Oak. And I was charging down, and he came up to me. He was like, if you go away now, I'm going to divorce you. I was like, go on and divorce me. I was ready. And I marched off, and he ran back after me. This was so, it was like, at this point, you know what, you guys, it's not easy to tell these things, but I just feel that I need to, I actually haven't revisited this in a very long time, that specific story, because very soon after that, I found some strength, I found some healing, and I really got into my content creation, and that's when I started going viral on YouTube, and I built myself from there. And so I just remember that just being one of the most traumatizing things ever. Why didn't we go through the divorce at that time? That would have been perfect. But then again, no, because what? I have AJ. I have my 8-year-old, and I wouldn't trade him for the world. He's everything, okay? So who knows why things happen as such. But yes, that was an opportunity to get out if I really pushed further enough. One of the things that a lot of women experience in marriages is loneliness. I was so lonely. Have you ever been in a partnership with someone, or a relationship, or a marriage, let's just call it what it is, and literally be living separate lives? So whilst to the internet it looks like everything's done together and whatnot, you know, I do feel that a lot of his support for what I did on my channels, etc., was performative. Perhaps there was an inkling of, I'm supporting your journey or supporting your, you know, your business and what you do, but one may look at it as perhaps it was also performative, because at the end of the day, that was what the anchor was. That was what was bringing it in. Cash, everything. So why not support me, of course, because that was the main anchor. And despite all of the palaver and everything everyone perhaps will see online, you're not seeing what's happening behind the scenes. There were very lonely times. I felt like even making decisions on your own in a marriage is a lonely experience, because the beauty and the sweetness of it all is doing it together. And yet there was just two people with two different mindsets and two different goals perhaps. And even if we had the same goal, we're not working on it together. So there was a lack of a partnership. But regardless of that, on a more of a personal and intimate level, I was extremely lonely. Lonely to the point where I would go to bed, and this happened for years, by myself. We didn't go to bed as a couple together. And you know what? Perhaps realistically in homes, wife has gone to bed earlier than the hubby. But you know what? A wife is going to have a hubby come in the middle of the night or whatever time, and you're going to engage together as a partnership, right? Never or rarely the case. Because he was more into, again, the church, and that was his world. And I was a separate thing to it. The main pastor of that church, the ministry we attend, is Pastor Chris. A lot of you guys will know him. And if I would say this, I think I was in a competition with Pastor Chris. And he won. He won. Pastor Chris won. He won. He took my man. He had him, man. Because everything was about sermon after sermon of the speaking of tongues, and every day and every night, far above and far beyond of engaging with me and filling my needs. And if anything, doing this together. And you may ask, so Chanel, why didn't you join in? I would say this is a spiritual thing. I can't really take to Christ Embassy, and I'm going to tell you why. Yes, I joined, and yes, the person that immediately won my heart was my actual pastor, as I shared. Amazing man. Out of all the Christ Embassy pastors I've met, the pastor of my church is somebody I would say had true integrity. And I just had a lot of respect for him. In fact, from the outside looking in, I could see a man who really was spearheading and leading his family. Him and his wife were best friends, and to this day, you can't tell me anything apart. They are best friends. They do everything together. And you know, how a man is able to handle his household, or how a couple are able to really handle his household as a pastor specifically, that just shows you how much he's able to manage their church. And let me tell you something about what a lot of these pastors are doing. And this is why Paul said in the Bible, it's better you are alone. Okay? Don't marry, right? Don't marry. If you cannot be with your family wholeheartedly, then don't marry at all. And I'm not one for quoting scriptures like that. I'm not even going to lie. But what I would say is, there is a lack of balancing with a lot of Christian pastors when it comes to matters of the family home, which really should take head in the hierarchy of things. God first, okay? Then the family, all right? Then the church. At least in my small little mind, that's how I feel it should be managed. However, that wasn't the case. And I was lonely in that marriage. And if I would go a step further in saying, he was married to Pastor Chris and not me. I don't like Christ Embassy. I don't like the ministry. I feel that there was meant to be some type of intention for it to be pure and whole. And I know nothing is perfect. But if I was going to recommend some ministries to you that you really will fulfill and grow spiritually, I can give you a few, but I wouldn't recommend there. Okay? I just remember some experiences, some events that, that occurred. I was traveled to South Africa with them and I saw everything. You see a person when you travel with them. Travel with somebody and you would really see their life. Oh, yeah. And so when I traveled with them, I traveled with my pastor's wife. She's cool, great woman. But I was looking at everybody else and observing. And my God, do we love to worship a pastor. There was this one particular time we went to visit another ministry's branch. This was in Neasden. And after the service, like food was being served and stuff. We love that part where Sister Aku and whatever, they will now bring their rice and, oh, fantastic, it's time to eat. And they had a room for their branch. And it wasn't even full. It wasn't full. I remember that. And they were gathering together, they were eating, and us who were the visitors, they said we're not allowed to sit with them. I kid you not. I went to church and had a you can't sit with us situation. Do you know how mad that is? That's actually quite crazy. My headscarf is moving back. You can't sit with us. That sounds like some petty high school stuff, but hey, it's my experience. I remember there was one next pastor as well. This man hated me. And I don't know why. I don't know what I did to this man. But he would just give me evils. Evils is when you kind of give people some side eye. On Pemasem, he did not like me at all. I barely spoke to him. But he just didn't like me. But whatever. We don't all love each other, isn't it? So no problem. But this is what smacks it. You lot listen. So we couldn't eat with them in their sacred room. It wasn't even sacred. It was a bloody hall, okay? Or like a room. It wasn't anything special. So we stood in the corridor with our jollof rice in our hand. I remember Sister Aku had a baby boy and she was struggling to feed herself, feed him, and also just, we didn't have a seat. We had to stand in the corridor. So we're eating our food. Some sister Wine I don't even know her name. She charging, everybody get out of here. Get out of here now, scatter. The pastors are coming. The leaders are coming. The leaders are coming. They can't see you here. Hi, come and see. Everybody now have to pick up their plate and scurry to wherever, I don't even know, because we weren't allowed in the room. And obviously we're not allowed in the main auditorium. It's the actual church. We had nowhere to eat. And so in the end, I remember me and the lady and her child, we sat in the car, we ate, and I dropped them home. But I remember when the leaders were walking through, like Gangara Bibi Bisano Gaiman, like we are the leaders of this church and you little peasants can just move. That was the vibe it was giving. Christ Embassy. Yeah. And I'm saying it with my chest because if there's anything we have to do is we have to fix these things, okay? I know there's levels to this, okay? There are people who are anointed and ordained to do bigger things. But looking down at, I guess, the congregation, it is not a spiritually led thing. That is your flesh. And if we want to talk about it that way, but that's neither here or there. And I started to quite quickly see that there was a hierarchy, like we're better than you. And, we're in the front row and you lot are behind and you can't sit with us. This was kind of the theme that was reoccurring. And it was honestly just becoming uncomfortable. The forcing of speaking of tongues. Like, if you couldn't speak tongues, you ain't ish in this church, okay? You better speak tongues. You better rabba shababa. Otherwise, honey, your prayers are not going to the heavens, yeah? Which is weird because if we're talking about prayer, we're talking about intention and speaking and declaring what you want to pull the results from the spiritual to the physical. So that was all strange to me as to why the English language or your mother tongue wasn't good enough to pray. All weird stuff, okay? By force, if you didn't do it, you, again, oh my God, this one woman, Sister Esther, one time she was so pissed with me because I didn't have money to give for Pastor Chris's birthday or Fast 7. So they have on his birthday every year, like a gift from the entire world. They all put in money and give it to him for his birthday every single year. I think his birthday is in November, and this is called Offer 7. There was this one time, and I remember I hadn't even married him yet. This was me being newer in the church. And I didn't have money, genuinely. And I was like, I don't have anything to give. And this woman phoned my phone and she actually gave me a bit of a word. Like, anything you have, you must give to the Lord. This is a gift to the Lord. Babe, I was on benefits. It was hard enough to buy milk for my baby and I. That was my reality. And by force, this big man who cruises in his private jet, I should fork out money to do what for him? And I'm still in Stonebridge. Bro, let me tell you something. I sit back and I'm like, you know what? You see Drewski gave us something, okay? Because that pertains to that particular guy as well. In fact, to the T. I'm sure he's got a pair of lubes as well. Red bottoms. First fruit. Ooh! You know what? I think you got the point. But in all, I would like to say this felt like ministries like this is becoming a bit of a shit show. It's becoming a bit of a circus. It's becoming a pantomime. It's becoming very theatrical, as I am. I'm very expressive as a person. But one thing is go the same, leave the same. Go the same, leave the same. Go the same. Whilst the big boys are bigging it up in the private jets, here we are running for the 18 bus, getting splashed by a motorcycle, struggling to pay your bills. And yet and still, that tithe and offering every month by force must go to them because something is going to change. Isn't it? This isn't just that church now. This is the religion in itself. I think this is a conversation that perhaps we need to broaden because something in the pudding ain't right. I finally got pregnant with my now 8-year-old son in 2017. February 2017. As I shared, I had something called the incompetent cervix. So I had to get my cervix stitched in order to carry the baby to full term. It was a success. And after I had gave birth to my son, my cousin passed away. It was actually so tragic because she was really young. She was 21 and she had a brain aneurysm. And she was here today, gone tomorrow, and had even a 2-year-old daughter at the time. It was so devastating. So I remember around the time my mum was going to the hospital countless of times, and she was also supporting my cousin and the family, my sister as well. My sister even ended up with an injury around the time. It was chaotic. So my family would always be there, and they were there for me after I gave birth to my son. But for the most part, it was just me and my partner and the baby. I was tired, extremely tired, as you are after giving birth. And this was something that was giving me the clue of, or the tip of where I'm seeing that things are going to get worse in this marriage. There was one evening I said, I'm tired. I've showed you how to change his nappy and stuff, which is something that he was reluctant to do at first, you guys. Yeah. He didn't want to learn. He assumed that that's a woman's job and a woman's job only. But I had to encourage him that you have to do this as well. So I gave him the baby and I went into the living room and I was on my phone. I had my feet up. I was relaxing because I was exhausted after giving birth and everything that happened with my cousin and stuff, and not having much support around me because, yeah. I could hear the baby screaming in the bedroom. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, he's got him. Let him cry and wind him up a bit. He's going to figure it out. But it's just, the baby won't stop. And as a mother, I'm like, damn, let me just go and peeking. I went to the bedroom. As soon as I opened the door, my ex-partner charged at me and that's where it began. I mean, in the past, there's been a little bit of a tussle, but this was a straight up buduf. I said, what the fuck? What? You're supposed to be looking after the baby. You're supposed to, yes. I'm not protecting this nigga anymore. You know why? Because there are many women in their house who are also silently suffering. I mentioned in the other video, look at what happened to Zandile and her beautiful daughters, Nala and Natalie. This was fresh. It wasn't even 2 weeks ago this happened. And then our poor sister Barbara Tomi, in the hands of a pastor, Pastor Ofori, Ghanaians in America. This was in 2020. So when I tell you some things are happening in people's home, some things are happening. Anyway, I was so terrified. I tried to fight back because I'm an Asante woman. I failed because there's a man and he's stronger. My next thing was to run for my life. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to pick my baby on time because it was so quick. But I ran out the house to my mum's. I got in the car, I drove to my house. I managed to get my key, go to my mum's. And I told her what happened. And she was like, are you actually kidding me? Where's the baby? I was like, I don't know, and I'm scared. And thankfully, I mean, my 8-year-old is here. Nothing happened. But try and pick up your baby, you guys. Just try. He didn't do anything to him. At least not what I'm aware of. But I didn't know what to do. You know, I just knew I had to get out. Because if I don't know what would have happened next. Anyway, that was just the beginning of where it kind of got worse. There's a lot more that I can continue to say, but I think I'm going to round it up here. We're going to talk about the weight, because marriage versus divorce and everyone blaming me. He loved a fat woman and he wanted me to get fat and fat and fat. That was his goal with me. We're not talking about that today. I've said enough, okay? End it here. Piao.